Kura tātou, ko Francis o, ko te whanua apanui taku iwi, nā ku te Jane Austen Society o Aotearoa e whakatū. No mai haere mai, I'm going to talk about Taylor Swift's song All Too Well and Jane Austen's novel Persuasion. Both these writers, yes, Taylor Swift is a writer, a special interest of mine, and I love combining them. I've made shorts on Instagram with videos from Austen adaptations and music from Taylor Swift. This is me. Note that my hair looks pink in that picture. It's actually purple and now it's blue. I'm obsessed with Jane Austen. Most of my life is about her. I write books based on her novels. I have a podcast and I founded the Jane Austen Society of Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm also a life coach, which I try to make about Austen when I can as well. I'll be pulling directly from the lyrics of All Too Well to discuss how they relate to Persuasion. Both works deal with grief and loss of a former relationship. Both mention autumn and the guy now dating someone younger who is the same age that the main character was when they were together. If you know the song All Too Well, you know this means I'll be discussing the absolutely devastating 10-minute version as it has that lyric. In the first verse, a sister's house feeling like home is mentioned. Mrs. Croft, Captain Wentworth's sister, is literally living in Anne's home. So of course it would feel like home because up until recently, a month before Michaelmas, which is the 29th of September, so end of August, it was her home. Anne was wide-eyed, or innocent is another term for wide-eyed, when she first met Captain Wentworth. She's grown a lot in the interim and says quite clearly that she would make different choices if the same situation came up, and she would give different advice than Lady Russell had given her. Persuasion is often described as an autumnal novel, not only because it's literally set in autumn, which is fall for the Americans. On the walk to Winthrop, Anne is thinking about the sweet scenes of autumn in poetry, but then has to stop because she doesn't want to bring up images of the declining year, declining happiness, declining youth and hope and spring, and how depressing that kind of is. When Captain Wentworth talks about a nut that's outlived the storms of autumn, he could be talking about Anne, but he doesn't know that. He doesn't know how much she's gone through. You could also argue that at 27, Anne is in the autumn of her life, which pains me to say because she's only 27. On the surface, Anne is okay. No one knows that she's suffering, both before Captain Wentworth returns and in a different way when he's there. She is not fine at all. Not only does Captain Wentworth return, so Anne has to do the awful thing of seeing an ex, especially one that's had a glow up, but it's in the same place. In case you forget, he's living in her house, and she wishes to avoid seeing him in the hall because those rooms had witnessed former meetings between them, which would be too painful for her to remember. The line dead and gone and buried is an excellent way to describe Anne and Wentworth's relationship, also devastating. You could argue that their relationship is revived during the course of the novel, or that they created something new on the bones of what they had previously. Their relationship was 8 years ago, which qualifies as long gone. It also implies the love between them has gone, and it certainly seems by his behaviour to her that Captain Wentworth no longer loves Anne. There's nothing else I could do. Lady Russell, Anne has always loved and relied on, and she could not be advising Anne in vain when Anne has always relied on her. She's convinced that the engagement was indiscreet, improper, hardly capable of access, and not deserving of it either. Also, that giving up the engagement was for Captain Wentworth's good as well, otherwise Anne would not have been able to break it off. You kept me like a secret, but I kept you like an oath. There was not the smallest symptom of any suspicion on Mrs. Croft's side about the engagement. And Captain Wentworth, when he turns up, inquires after Anne slightly, as might suit a former slight acquaintance. But Anne has always kept him in a special part of her heart. When she's talking to Captain Harville, she says, "While the woman you love lives and lives for you, you will love them. But women have the privilege of loving longest when existence or when hope is gone." And she's really talking about herself and her feelings for Captain Wentworth, which have never gone anywhere. We know Anne thinks that giving up Captain Wentworth was for his own good. We've just talked about that. But he thinks that she had given him up to oblige others. Over persuasion, weakness, and timidity on her part. He didn't understand where she was coming from. They literally got lost in translation. When Captain Wentworth is asked about Anne, Mary repeats to Anne that he had said she was so altered he should not have known her again. And he used these words without any idea that they'd ever get around to her. He thought her wretchedly altered, and in the first moment of appeal had spoken as he felt. Also, he hadn't forgiven her, so he was being honest, but also kind of cruel. And when he's talking to Louisa Musgrove, he's talking about the importance of fortitude and strength of mind, that hers was a character of decision and firmness. It is the worst evil of too yielding and indecisive a character that no influence over it can be depended on. Everybody may sway it. Again, he's thinking about Anne. Anne is very much in hell when Captain Wentworth turns up. She's been in hell the entire time because she loved him, but it's a new hell now that he's back. Please appreciate that beautiful transition. I wish all of them had behaved like that. When she's talking to Captain Harville, she says, "We do not forget you as soon as you forget us." Women don't forget men. We cannot help ourselves. We live at home, quiet, confined, and our feelings prey upon us. Time won't fly because of those things, whereas men are forced to exertion. They have professions, pursuits, gets them out of the house, into the world, they have occupation, and change weakens those ideas. But for Anne, she was paralyzed 8 years ago in those feelings. It's very obvious that Captain Wentworth and Anne loved each other. He had been most warmly attached to her and had never seen a woman since whom he thought her equal. So you could argue that she was the one real thing that he had ever known, and he lost her. And we learn it's partly his own fault. "I'll get older, but your lovers stay my age." When Captain Wentworth returns, he's willing to marry anybody between 15 and 30. He had a heart for either of the Miss Musgroves, if they could catch it, for any pleasing young woman except Anne Elliot. It's not as creepy then as it is now. The pool of marriageable women stayed the same age no matter how old you got. Louisa Musgrove is 19, the same age that Anne was when they were engaged. And in the novel, this lacks the contempt which is really evident in the song. Anne doesn't have it, but Lady Russell has that contempt to him. Her heart revelled in angry pleasure and pleased contempt that the man who at 23 had seemed to understand somewhat of the value of an Anne Elliot should, 8 years afterwards, be charmed by a Louisa Musgrove. And then soldier. I mean, Captain Wentworth is not a soldier. He's a sailor, but it is still a branch of the military. Is Taylor Swift writing about persuasion? No, she's writing about her own life and Jake Gyllenhaal, we assume. But we can draw comparisons between the lyrics of All Too Well and Anne's feelings in Persuasion. Both have references to autumn. Both are about lost love and pain, and both, at least the 10-minute version, talk about the person that you were in a relationship with now dating someone who is the same age that you were. In All Too Well, it's extra worse because there is a line about him saying, if we'd been closer in age, it would have been fine. But it's obviously a lie because he's now dating someone that is that same age, which, as we know, is a power dynamic. Anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk on why Jane Austen and Taylor Swift are two of the greatest writers and why we should read them together. Thank you.